Question 23. The marks scored by 40 students in a mathematics test were as shown in the table below. So we have the marks and the number of students. Find the lower class boundary of the model class. Then, using an assumed mean of 64, calculate the mean mark. This question is from the topic of statistics that is first taught in Form 3, and then the concept that we will use to calculate the mean mark is taught in Form 4. So, in Part A, we are required to find the lower class boundary of the model class. So, before that, we need to identify the model class. The model class is the one with the highest frequency, which is the class 63 to 67. The lower class boundary of the class 63 to 67 will be 63 minus 0.5, which is equal to 62.5. And that is 1 mark. Now, using an assumed mean of 64, calculate the mean mark. Now, to do this, we need to rearrange our table. Our table is in marks that are, so we have the marks, and the first class is 48 to 52, then 53 to 57, then 58 to 62, then 63 to 67, then 68 to 72. Finally, we have 73 to 77. Then we need to find the midpoint in each particular class. So to get the midpoint, you just need to add the two values and divide by 2. Like for example, in this case, you take 48 plus 52, then you divide by 2, and that gives you 50. 53 plus 57 divided by 2 is 55. Then 58 plus 62, then you divide by 2, you get 60. Then 63 plus 67, then you divide by 2, you get 65. Then 68 minus 72, 68 plus 72, then you divide by 2, you get 70. Then 73 plus 77, then you divide by 2, you get 75. Now, after getting our midpoint, which will act as our x, we can now get the deviation. Now, deviation is a value that we get by subtracting x from the assumed mean. So, D is given by, our assumed mean is 64. So, 64 minus x. So, for the first class, we will have 64 minus 50, which is 14. Then 64 minus 55, which is 9. Then 64 minus 60, which is 4. Then 64 minus 65, which is negative 1. Then 64 minus 70, which is negative 6. Then 64 minus 75, which is negative 11. Now, after doing that, we already have the number of students for each particular class, and that represents the frequency. So, if we highlight the frequency is as from the table. We have 3, 4, 10, 12, 8, and 3. So we will create another column where we multiply the frequency by the deviation. So 14 times 3 is 42. Then 9 times 4 is 36. 4 times 10 is 40. Negative 1 times 12 is negative 12. Then negative 6 times 8 is negative 48. And finally, negative 11 times 3 is negative 33. We will be required to get the sum of the frequency and the sum of the product of frequency and D. So the sum here is 40 and the sum here is 25. Now, when calculating the mean using an assumed mean, the formula used is given by mean is equal to A, where A is the assumed mean, plus the summation of FD over the summation of F. Now note that this formula is at the back of your mathematical table. Now this is equal to the value of the assumed mean is 64 plus the value of the summation of FD. FD is 25 over the value of the summation of F, which is 40. So adding this, we will get this is 64 plus 25 over 40 is 0.625. So the mean mark will be equal to 64.625. And that is the answer. So marks distribution will be as follows. Getting the deviation, the correct values of deviation is 1 mark. And then being able to apply using the correct formula for calculation of mean is 1 mark, and getting the correct answer for the mean is another 1 mark.